Hello, hello, hello. Come back in. Come back in. Come back in. Come on in. Come on in. All right, come on in. I want to get started, finish up. Come back in, please, and share this. Share this. Hello, Miss Laura. Come on in. I'm getting started again. Something went wrong. Hello, hello, hello. Come back on in. We're going to keep talking. My connection was weak, and so it must have been really weak that time because it completely logged me off. And so I want to get started again. Go ahead and invite your followers again. We want to continue this session. I apologize for that happening. I was on a roll, so I really didn't notice that it wasn't working. So come back in, invite your followers. We want to get this going again. So one of the things that I was talking about is that when you are, and I'm not sure where everybody left off, but one of the things is when we are doing a faith-based assessment, when we are addressing mental health through the spirit in our professional setting, we're going to look for things that are different from what you would see in a natural mental health services setting. Okay, we're going to look at some things that are going to be different. So I was saying that in a regular assessment, some of the things that I do, and if you know me, you know I work in the mental health field as a counselor. So a couple of things that we will look at a lot of times is our family history, our psychosocial history, our educational history, our history of drug and substance abuse, our living space, our family support, finances, employment, housing. We're going to look at things like that because statistics say that those are indicators can be indicators or components to put a person at risk of a mental health issue, a mental illness. Okay, so basing it on the and also physical symptoms or physical illness we call that the biopsychosocial assessment. Okay, and those are things that if you go into a regular mental health setting, they are going to assess you based on those things, and they're going to say that based on all of this, you are at a certain risk level for mental illness. Okay, but when we are talking about addressing mental health from the spirit, from the spiritual realm, okay, and addressing it in the spirit, okay, we're going to add certain things to it. And number one, okay, y'all just be praying with me because it's saying the connection is weak, but I want to get this information out. So we're praying right now that the connection will be strong and that someone will be blessed by this. Someone will be healed and set free. We're inviting you to come to the Mental Health and Faith Conference. That's in January this month, 27th and 28th in Gilbert, Arizona. We want you to spread this to your coworkers, spread it to your family members. I noticed that our whole families are registering for this conference. People have reached out to us because they know someone in their family who is mentally ill. They are a caretaker. They work with someone. That is their job. The backgrounds of the people that are attending this conference is just phenomenal, as well as the backgrounds of the presenters is just phenomenal. Okay, so when we're talking about addressing mental health through the faith, and we're talking about a faith-based assessment, we are going to talk about, number one, faith. We're talking about faith, okay? Number two, we're going to talk about the person's conscience, okay? Number three, we're going to talk about their identity. Okay, and number four, we're going to talk about their creativity. Okay, a lot of this information is coming from text that has been published by the International Institute of Faith-Based Counseling. Okay, so faith, conscience, identity, and creativity. So faith, conscience, identity, and creativity. Okay, so when we're talking about faith and we're talking about assessing someone from a faith-based perspective, we're talking about their level of faith. So we're talking about their knowing, their belief, their trust level that things are the way it should be. We're talking about their belief, their trust that things are the way they should be. When a person is healthy in their level of faith, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, things may not be the way they want it to be, but they can see a light at the end of the tunnel. They believe if they work hard, they believe as time passes, things will get better. They believe that there is some level of hope there. So they have a level of faith. Now, we're all given a measure of faith. So everyone's faith is not going to be the same. And when we're talking about someone who is mentally ill, their level of faith is definitely not going to be where it should be, and all we need is a little bit. All we need is a mustard seed level of faith. But when we're talking about someone who is going through a mental illness or mental health crisis, then we're going to notice that their faith is not going to be where it needs to be. So when we're talking about a faith-based assessment, again, for those who are coming in, we're talking about in addition to those normal biopsychosocial components and assessment questions, we're going to assess the person's level of faith. We're going to assess their conscience. We're going to assess their level of identity and their level of creativity. So faith is their knowing, their belief, their trust level, their belief that things in their life are the way it should be. Okay, some of us are high in that level where we believe that things are going to work out. We can see hope. But when a person is experiencing mental health crisis, mental illness, then we'll notice that their faith is very low. They do not believe things are the way that it should be. They believe that they actually have an absence of faith where there is fear of the unknown. They believe that anything could possibly come at any moment to tear them down. They believe that they are cursed. They believe that something is some outside factor is coming in and it is keeping them down. They do not believe that they can learn from whatever they're going through. They don't believe that they're going through this situation to make them stronger. So there is a lack of hope. There is a lack of faith. They do not see the light at the end of the tunnel, okay? And so if we go in the DSM, we can see a number of diagnoses where from a faith-based perspective, a person may actually fit into that category because there is a level of hopelessness, okay? That's including our basics, and everyone knows about depression. But there are many more that from a faith-based perspective, an indicator of mental health issues would be their lack of faith, okay? All right, now, so when we're talking about a lack of faith, and again, I may have to break this up into many videos because I want to talk about faith, conscious, identity, and creativity. So when we're talking about faith, when we do not see, when a person is low on their faith, we often see a rise in fear, okay? When a person is low in their faith, and we're talking from a mental health perspective, when they're low in their faith, we often will see a rise in fear. Okay? All right. And from when we're talking about this mental health and faith perspective, we're saying that fear in this context, fear is an absence of faith. Fear is an absence of faith. So when we're talking about fear, we're talking about fear of the unknown, fear of people, fear of even failure, fear of loss, fear of not making it. They do not see the light at the end of the tunnel. They do not have any hope. So again, faith would be, their level of faith would indicate mental health, would indicate a level of mental. So when we're talking about faith, we're talking about they are upward on the scale. So this is an indicator that there's some mental health there. But when we're talking about fear that things are not going to work out, fear that they're going to be abandoned, fear of people, fear of unknown, fear of failure, fear of loss, then that is an indicator that a person may be suffering a mental health crisis, and that they are not spiritually healthy. Okay, that is faith. Okay, I want to go into conscience. Okay, when a person, from a mental health perspective, when a person has is consciously healthy, so they have a sense of right from wrong. They have a sense of right from wrong, meaning they have good decision-making skills. They are able to discern what is right and what is wrong, okay? They are able to make good decisions, rational decisions, decisions based on evidence, decisions based on experience, decisions based on information. They are not impulsive. They don't just make decisions that don't make sense. They are able to sense what is good and what is evil. They are able to discern what is right and what is wrong. There is validity in their thought. Their thought processes are based on reason. They are rational in their thinking process. So when we're talking about a person who is mentally healthy, then we're going to see their balance in them having conscience, a good conscience, a good conscience. Okay, so when we look at conscience and when we think that a person is low on their conscience level, very often we will see a rise in pride. Okay, we will see a rise in pride when we look at a low level of conscience, rational decision making. We will often see a rise in pride. Okay, so for those who are joining, we are talking about mental health assessment from a spiritual perspective, addressing mental health through the spirit realm. And I'm not going to be on here too much longer. There are 4 components. I'm actually going to address 2 right now because our connection is weak. And so tomorrow I will definitely be back on, and I may actually go through this again from a better location. But we're going to talk about we're talking about conscience. So when we see a low level of conscience, we will often see a high level of pride. So remember, conscience is a sense of right from wrong. They're able to make good decisions. Their decisions are based on valid thoughts and reasoning, and they have a level of rational thinking. But when they do have a low level of conscience, we'll often see a high level of pride. So their inability, and listen, our conscience comes from God. Our conscience really is, from a spiritually healthy perspective, our conscience is our ability to hear from God. Okay, I have to add that in. Our ability to hear from God, because God speaks to us. He gives us a sense of direction. He allows us to make good decisions. He allows us to make it from day to day. But when a person is not consciously healthy, then oftentimes we see a level of pride. Now, pride is a word that nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to acknowledge that, because if those of us who have heard it time and time again in church, then we feel like that is something we hear about the spirit of Jezebel, but there is no one, I can say that with confidence and boldness, there is no one that has not struggled or exhibited a level of pride in their life. Okay, that is a spirit that comes and it often attacks everyone. Okay, so when we see that when we're talking about pride, we're talking about a disregard of God's laws. We're talking about a lack of conscience or a lack of ability to hear from God, and an inability to focus on God's voice. And so when we talk about pride, we talk about an absence of hearing from God and a focus in on the self. And we're talking about a focus in on the self in an unhealthy way. Focusing in on yourself to an extent that it's almost as if the world revolves around that person. They don't see anyone else's. They don't have a sense of compassion for anyone else's issue. They almost believe that everyone is talking about them. Everyone is focused on them because they themselves are focused on themselves. Okay, they themselves are focused in on what their thoughts are. Even if their thoughts are not valid, they're focused in on that. That's all they think about from sun up to sundown. The idea that the world moves on without them is they're unable to process that concept. They are unable to process that the world does not revolve around them. So there is a extra sense of pride there. There is a great sense of pride. Focus on the self. Focus on their thoughts. Focus on their woes, even if their thoughts are invalid. For example, no one likes me, no one loves me. They can have be in a family full of people that love them, but because they are focusing on their own thoughts, their own self, they cannot perceive the love of the people around them. So this is a lack of conscience or hearing from God, and an increase in pride. Okay, so then there are several disorders, several diagnoses that can stem off from this. One of the ones that I can think of, for example, is paranoid schizophrenia. Paranoid schizophrenia, where a person, and I'm just giving a roundabout definition, but a person is very much intoxicated with their own thoughts. Very much intoxicated with their own thoughts. There is a lack of rationality in their thoughts. It is untrue. There is a lack of evidence, but that is what their own thoughts are telling them. And because they're unable to hear from God to discern what is right from wrong, that good conscience, there is an increase in paranoia, that people are out to get them. Again, there's that paranoia that the world is revolving around them, that everyone is focused in on them, and they're unable to discern what is right and what is wrong. That is an increase in pride, and a decrease in good conscience. Okay, so I'm actually going to wrap that up. I'm going to try to come on again tomorrow and talk more about this. This is a lot of information. This is information that we are going to be talking about at the Mental Health and Faith Conference. We're hoping that you will register. All around the world, people are coming in, they're flying in, and the Lord is really blessing. But this is His conference, and I believe that there's a movement. There's a movement that is going to be happening not only here in Arizona, not only here in the United States, but I believe it's going to be happening worldwide, where we are going to be addressing mental health from the spirit realm. Okay. And I'm so excited to be a part of that. This is our calling. This is my calling, my passion, and the passion of so many others. And so if this is you that you are called into this area, you are called into the mental health profession, and I do say called by God because you didn't put yourself there. If you are called into that profession, I would encourage you to register for this Mental Health and Faith Conference. You can go on Eventbrite. You can register there. You can definitely follow me on Facebook. Go to the webpage, Faith Solutions to Mental Health. We have an abundance of speakers that are going to be coming in, and they're going to be talking to us from a professional perspective and from a mental health perspective. So we're going to get actual personal stories of people who have suffered from mental illness for many years. We're going to talk about the spirit of suicide. We're going to talk about generational curses as it relates to mental illness. We're going to talk about counseling ministries and how churches can incorporate counseling ministries into their local churches. We're going to talk about liability. We're going to talk about suicide and steps of intervention and prevention. So please get here no matter who you are. We are spreading the word. It is free. Hotel and flight information, airport information is listed on Eventbrite. I'm going to try to be back on tomorrow night at the same time. I'm going to probably be in a different location because the connection is weak, and I do apologize for that. But we definitely want to talk about these things moving forward. We want you to incorporate this. We want you to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. Okay. And we want to take this information. We want to take this around the United States, around the world, so that people can begin to address mental health through the spirit realm. But ultimately, it is about discipleship. It is about souls being saved. Listen, this is the year, this is the season that there is a harvest that is coming in. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray ye the Lord of the harvest that He will send laborers into the harvest. Okay, I am a harvester. You are a harvester, and it is time for us to get out there whatever profession we're in, we often think that that is going to happen. The harvest is going to come in the church and in the walls of the church. But I'm here to tell you the harvest is going to come in by us going out into the hedges and the highways and compelling them to come in. We cannot do that in the four walls. We cannot compel people to come in when we're sitting in the four walls. And so we have to go out and go into our hedges and highways. My hedges and highways is in the mental health field. Where is your hedge and where's your highway that you are compelled to go out into? Okay? All right. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. And I ask that you will share this, share both videos. There may be 2 videos on my page. But whatever you see, share that. Invite people to come back tomorrow. And I love you and God bless.